Many people believe that when they ignore their inner knowing, nothing really happens. Life continues, the moment passes, and they move on. But in my experience, something does happen. And sometimes it is immediate enough that you cannot pretend otherwise. I'm Ondrea Lynneé, and I help purpose-driven people lead their lives and live their purpose from their inner authority. Today, let's take a moment to reflect on what it actually means to override yourself and what it costs us when we do. So I want to tell you about a morning at the toll booth. This was years ago when I was early in what I would describe as my intentional relationship with my inner wisdom. I was actively working to trust those quiet impressions more, to notice them, to stay with them, and to follow them rather than immediately talking myself out of them. So as I was approaching the toll booth, coins in hand, ready to pay my 70 cents. And yes, this was when we still had the option to pay cash at the toll booth. Anyway, I got a clear impression. Hold back 5 cents. Put all the other coins in first, and then drop in that last nickel separately. Now, I knew why this impression made sense. I had learned through experience that through watching others, that toll booths in my local area sometimes register a payment as incomplete, even when you've paid in full. And the way to avoid that was to drop in most of the change first, then toss in that final coin. So I knew this. And yet my rational mind stepped in immediately. Nope, not doing it. It'll register, just throw it all in at once. So I did. I tossed in the full 70 cents and in the basket all at once. And the moment I did, the toll booth buzzed. And not a quiet little beep either, a loud, obnoxious buzz, like the sound effect on a game show when someone gets the answer wrong. And I remember laughing out loud because it was so immediate, so undeniable. It was just so perfectly timed. I had heard the impression very clearly. I understood it completely. And I still deliberately chose to override it anyway. And the universe, it seemed, had a sense of humor about the whole thing. And I share this story not because missing a toll booth impression is significant in life. In the scope of everything, it's not. But the pattern it represents is. Because overriding our inner wisdom is rarely dramatic. It rarely announces itself as a significant moment of self-betrayal. It usually sounds like this. That doesn't make sense. I'm probably overthinking it. I know what I'm doing. It'll be fine. And sometimes it is fine. But sometimes immediately, sometimes much later, you hear the buzz. That internal signal that says, you knew, and you deliberately chose not to listen. What I've come to understand about overriding ourselves is that it almost never feels like an override in the moment. What it feels like is being reasonable, like being practical, like it just makes sense. Sometimes that internal conversation is so quick, so automatic, so familiar that we barely even notice it's even happening. An impression arises, the rational mind responds, the impression is filed away, and we continue on. But here is what that pattern costs us over time. And this is what I want you to really sit with. Every time we hear our inner wisdom and choose not to listen, we send ourselves a message. We say, what you sense is not as reliable as what you can explain. And our inner wisdom, which has been patiently and faithfully offering us guidance becomes a little quieter. And not because it stops speaking to us, but because we have trained ourselves through repetition, through experience, to move past it before it's had a chance to land. This is the real cost of overriding ourselves. Not the specific moment we missed, not the toll booth buzzer or the inconvenience or the situation we could have handled differently. What it cost us is the relationship, the living relationship between who we are and the deeper intelligence that lives within us, that is trying to guide us toward who we are here to become. And if we can't listen to it in the toll booth moments of our lives, how can we expect to listen to it when it really counts? And I want to acknowledge something before we close. If you recognize yourself anywhere in this story, if you heard your own voice in those quick, familiar justifications, that recognition itself is awareness. And awareness, as we explored in our last video, is always where everything begins. So this week, I invite you to do something simple. Think of one recent moment when you sensed something, a quiet impression or a knowing, a nudge, and you chose not to follow it. Don't judge the choice. Simply look at it honestly and ask yourself, what did I tell myself in that moment that made me override that impression and made it feel reasonable? Because that thought, that specific familiar internal justification is the pattern worth knowing. When you can name it, you can begin to choose differently. And choosing differently, one moment at a time, is how you begin to rebuild the most important relationship you will ever have, the one you have with yourself. If something in this video resonated with you, if you felt a quiet recognition, a sense that this is for you, I want you to pay attention to that. That feeling is your inner authority speaking. I work with people who are ready to stop second guessing that voice and start leading their lives from it. If you sense that might be you, I invite you to schedule a complimentary 20-minute clarity call with me. It is a private conversation where we explore what you are sensing, where you feel called, and what your next grounded steps look like. The link is below, and I would love to meet you there. And remember, you can trust your inner authority to guide you. Until next time.